The Islamic State says it's behind a knife attack that killed 2 women in Marseille's main train station. The perpetrator was shot dead by security services minutes later, stopping his assault and preventing further casualties. RT correspondent Charlotte Dubensky reports.
Well, we know that those 2 women were killed following that knife attack in the station at Marseille, the main station, Saint-Charles. So we understand that the man who was wielding that knife actually slit the throat of one of the women. That's how she died. And apparently, according to passers-by, he screamed out, Allahu Akbar, or God is the greatest, while he was carrying out that attack. Now, the security services at the station were able to respond fairly quickly and shot the man dead at the scene. And what the prosecutor's office has said in Paris is that while the motives are not yet clear, what they're doing is that they're treating this as a killing linked to a terrorist organisation. Now, the security services have been praised for reacting and responding so quickly to this attack, with officials on the ground saying they feared that this could have been far worse had they not. And those security services are part of some 7,000 troops who are deployed across France and have been for the last few years, as the country has been under a state of high emergency since January 2015. That's when the offices of the satirical newspaper Charlie Hebdo were attacked, with 12 people being killed. And then the country was put into a state of emergency in November 2015 after that deadly night of attacks in Paris, where around 130 odd people were killed in coordinated series of attacks. Now, since then, France has seen a number of attacks, including in Nice, which is also in the south of France, and this year, in 2017, a number of smaller attacks. Now, the current president, Emmanuel Macron, wants to end that state of emergency in France and wants to do so by November of this year, so just next month. And in fact, this week, the first draft of his new controversial legislation, which will consolidate some of the powers that some of the security forces have had under that state of emergency, will be consolidated into their jobs as normal, will actually be voted on this week.
Emmanuel Macron tweeted his outrage at what he called the barbaric act. The president also praised the work of Operation Sentinel. Soldiers from this initiative are credited with killing the attacker. Sentinel is France's first wide-scale military operation in peacetime. 10,000 combat troops across the country are involved and have become a common sight at transport hubs and tourist hotspots. The operation was launched after the terror attack on the Charlie Hebdo magazine offices in early 2015 and was reinforced later that year. But the soldiers themselves have often become a target for the attackers. British former intelligence officer Annie Machon believes the operation allows a quicker response, but more must be done to prevent assaults in the first place.
Well, I think we're seeing a much faster reaction time from the police and security forces in all countries across Europe. I mean, particularly in London as well, with the attacks that happened only a few months ago, that the reaction time is much faster to stop further deaths. But of course, you can't stop the initial attacks in themselves, because these tend to be lone wolves. They tend to already be on the radar of the police or the security services. But it seems that they're drowning in information because of the dragnet surveillance infrastructure they now have in place. So they're not targeting, investigating and stopping potential terroristic type attacks. And that is an ongoing problem. I've said this many times, but they don't seem to learn from that. And perhaps it's very difficult to try and tackle it as well.